The main ways in which saffron control changed and developed. You wouldn't exactly say that control at the 65th Fighter Wing was strictly according to Hoyle. The setup described in the previous chapter was quite different from the one the wing was organized and trained to handle. It is believed worthwhile to outline here the main changes that came about to convert the 4th Air Defense Wing of June 1943 into the 65th Fighter Wing of early 1945. In organization, both the wing headquarters and the 52nd Fighter Control Squadron were found to be unsuitable. The wing was a standard 1, 2, and E-1-550-1, designed to perform the functions of air defense. In England, it discovered it was to have no air defense responsibility whatsoever. All the special personnel, such as the Civil Air Raid Warning Officer, the Radio Silence Officer, the Identification Officer, and the Anti-Aircraft Liaison Officer, people intended to help the controller run the area defense machinery, were out of jobs. Not for long, for the wing's new mission gave everybody plenty to do, but all these defense specialists had to be trained in new tasks. The Fighter Control Squadron, 2 and E-1-47, found itself in its proper mission, right enough, but only half big enough. Its 23 officers and 217 enlisted men were supposed to be able to establish and operate 4 fixer stations for VHF channels on forward relay and 4 VHF channels on local transmitter receiver. Before it was through, the 52nd Fighter Control Squadron had to operate 22 fixer stations, 27 VHF forward relay channels, and 20 local VHF channels. It acquired 484 enlisted men to do this, but never was allotted more than the 23 original officers. A truly terrific administrative burden was thus placed on the headquarters of this top-heavy organization. One reason this extra work came to the 52nd was that even during the period when the 66th and 67th Wings were controlling, it was found impracticable to split up the lines to the forward relay stations, and all of those stations continued to be operated by 65th Wing personnel. The channels to be used by Sawston and Walcott were specified on each field order, and those lines were patched through from Sawston to the other 2 ops rooms. Another reason was that all times the B channel control remained exclusively at Saffron, requiring at the peak a total of 9 fixer stations for forward relay channels and 2 locals. Each of the other 2 wings operated its own D channel fixture net during the period in controlled, roughly the year 1944. And when it came time to centralize all control at Saffron, the 52nd Fighter Control Squadron found it possible to take on the extra load without further augmentation. For by this time, some of the fixer stations southwest of London had become unnecessary. They were closed, and the personnel made available to set up the extra D channel net required. Fundamentally, in spite of the radically different control mission the wing was handed in England, the basic communications planned back in the States stood up to the test. The standard truckborne and airborne units were used successfully, with very little adaptation. The principal changes are those already mentioned, such as automatic send-receive modifications. Individual amplifiers were installed in the lines through the group controllers to build up the volume in their headphones, but this was not a new idea. It was adapted from the standard SCR 574 truck unit. In fact, as a test to see how well it could function using portable equipment, the wing in the summer of 1944 set up a complete ANTTQ, Army-Navy Transportable Telephone Special Purpose, portable ops room in a tent back of headquarters building. This was a standard American control set of the type used by all tactical control centers on the continent, and all of Saffron's control except air/sea rescue was handled very successfully by means of it for a period of several weeks. Many of the ingenious arrangements for intercom within the ops room were of course new. Some of them, like the use of roving controllers, were made necessary by the complexity of the system and the large number of channels used. Undoubtedly, some of these ideas will be usefully incorporated in future standard American arrangements. The development of the relay bomber was definitely something new and represents a lasting contribution to the technique of long-range control. It must be appreciated that these developments came gradually with much experimentation, and it is useless to record here every step along the way. The ops room was rewired and rearranged completely at least twice, and in some minor way, almost every week. One essential phase of controlling the pre-war schools had overlooked entirely the proper recording and reporting of what was done. When the wing began operations in July 1943, there was no such thing as a controller's report, almost the only record being the logs kept by the monitors in the silence cabinets, taking down what they could of the traffic on the radio channels. Since they could not monitor both forward relay and local at the same time, they missed quite a bit, and this was a poor record anyway, given nothing of the background for the controller's decisions or what those decisions were. The Wing Intelligence Section, being held responsible for mission reporting, soon found that no adequate story was being told of controlled action, and yet very often controlled action was directly affecting the mission results. At first, the problem was solved by having an A2 officer provided with a headset through which he could monitor all the chief controller's telephone conversations. This officer customarily stood or sat directly behind the chief controller, noting and recording all the important messages and decisions affecting the mission. From these notes, a control report was prepared daily. Even this did not get all the story, so each group controller was required to keep a log of all his transmissions to his group and all important information received, together with the times of each entry. From these beginnings developed a standard system of control reporting in the form described in Appendix D. The monitoring by A2 was dispensed with by having all needed facts recorded at the various positions by the people taking the action. The problem of getting enough controllers to operate the Saffron Center was always difficult, and there was a constant turnover through the 2 years as new people were tried out. Many former pilots were used, some of them having finished operational tours of duty, others having been grounded for one reason or another. How they worked out will be mentioned in Chapter 6. When control was concentrated at Saffron, controllers were moved from Sawston and Walcott Halls on detached surface to help carry the load. At one time, there were 14 such officers on duty with the 65th Fighter Wing. One of the reasons why there was always a shortage of such people was that in the organization of the 8th Air Force, no provision had been made for an MEW control center. Many of the controllers at Nutt House were on detached service from the units in England, filling vacancies in the T/Os, but very much absent when there was controlling to be done. In methods and procedure, there were quite a few changes over 2 years, some of them worth mentioning. In fixing, for instance, it was found possible to speed up the process by inventing in the large 7-foot circular triangulating tables first used, see photo page 41, in favor of smaller square tables. The big tables, taken over from the RAF, had the degree marks for the stations in varicolored stripes around the edges, and undue confusion resulted when several operators all tried to bring their strings clear across the table bearings. On the later tables, the Orlando system of using a compass rose around each station location was adopted. On the R/T, the old idea of referring to enemy bombers as bandits and enemy fighters as rats had to be changed. Any enemy formations identified by radar were bandits, whereas hostilities identified by the Y service were called rats. This distinction was made because group leaders wanted to know the source of the information in evaluating the situation and deciding what to do. The idea of briefing controllers on a mission in much the same manner as pilots are briefed was an innovation at Saffron that hadn't been in the book before. The big briefing map in the upper room was a very useful piece of equipment and overall efficiency of control improved after the chief controller started using it. Yes, and there was one other very important change that took place at Saffron Walden during the period the 65th Fighter Wing Control. Everybody got at least 2 years older.